up or anything. No, that's not where we're going with it.
Okay, over to you, Melody.
Sure. Okay. Well, thanks everyone who's here so far. Thank you for joining us on this day. I am super psyched to be hosting this chat on self-promotion. Not just because I personally am not very good at it and really hope to learn a lot from my awesome guests, Brian, Rata, and Ali, who are here. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. But also because they're all around super awesome folks. So let's hope we have a real fun night. This is like real chill and casual, so no stress, anyone. That's mostly to me. All right. So there is a Figjam board I think that you can find on the Discord, but broadly speaking, we'll be talking about self-promotion in three main dimensions: self-promotion in the community, self-promotion in the process of getting hired, and then self-promotion in the as part of like advancing in your current team or organization. So to become more senior, to get promotion, to literally get a promotion. And that's it. So I was thinking we could kick off introductions within the panel by doing just like a little bit of an intro question. So just a bit about yourself and something you've done recently to promote yourself. So I'll go first. My name is Melody. I'm a product designer at Meta, and I have been working in this field for like 8 years. I regret saying this because I feel old immediately. Something I've done recently to promote myself is to sign up to host this thing, which is, thanks everyone. It's really exciting, but as I was just telling Ali and Rata and Brian, my first reaction basically to people liking posts about this event was to not look at LinkedIn for a week. So that's my starting ground. That's where I am with self promo. Let's start with Brian. Do you wanna just kick us off, and then we can go Rata and then Ali.
Okay. Hi, my name is Brian. I'm a designer at Grab. I've been a designer for 7 years, so we're not so far apart, Melody. And what I did to promote myself recently is I draw comic strips and post that on Instagram and Twitter. So yeah.
Rata, you wanna go?
Yes, so hi, my name is Rata. I am an experience designer consultant from ThoughtWorks. And previously, I was a flight attendant before, so I did a career change. So if anything related to the career change or work as a consultant, you can ping me all the time on my LinkedIn. And I'm also an ambassador of ADP List, Amazing Design People List is the design community where you can find the mentor around the world. And also Alista, he also there as well as a mentor. So yeah, so that's about me. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Rata. Ali, on to you.
Nice. I am Alistair or Ali or Orkful, depending on how you know me, I guess. I have been working for, I think, like 10 years now, which just also makes me a bit sad. I am director of design at a company called Agency. We're like a small, we're not so small anymore, about 25 of us now, designing like human-centered design agency in Singapore. We are, I guess I described my role originally, I was like an interaction designer, now kind of just like head of all of our little weird disciplines that we have. When it comes to promotion, the only thing I could think of that was very like weird that I found kind of interesting is I've been putting out music recently, but because of a project that I'm doing around blockchain and music. So even though it doesn't really feel like it's about promotion, it's more about me understanding, like getting quite in depth with design and trying to understand processes, but also accidentally promoting my music at the same time. So yeah, you can go listen to me if you want. But that's me.
Look at that, all these pros at self-promo just appearing, just being here. I love it. It's great. I love that we're talking about tiny wisdom in chat already. Everyone go and look at Brian's stuff if you've not seen it already. Rata, you're amazing. Your story that they told me was amazing, and that's why I thought it'd be really cool to kind of have you here. Also because you're a career changer and like relatively junior. to this whole this whole thing that we're all now stuck in. And Ali, I have to say one thing that your music has inspired me to do, that Uwu thing that appeared, is I've made a D&D character based off of that. His name is Uwu, and every time he appears, I say Uwu into the conversation.
Good. I'm proud. please use it as the soundtrack. I would be very happy. It's
That's his background music. Yeah. But yeah, okay. Thanks so much for your interest, everyone. Now that we're all introduced, it's great that the tiny wisdom has already been mentioned, because that was actually the first kind of question that I had for Brian. Given that you are super well known for this series of comics, I say this from personal experience because I first started seeing you like floating around from that series of comics. How did you get started writing on? What was your motivation like to get started? Was it like explicitly to self-promo, or did you kind of start somewhere else?
Okay. And I can't control my face because everyone has been saying good stuff about it, so thank you.
It's awesome.
But yeah, so it was just a way for me to put my thoughts into words. And I think but writing clarifies my thinking. So that's how I started. And I think because of COVID, I've had lots of time at home doing nothing, right? So I just started drawing. And once I posted on Twitter and it went wild, so I just continued what I did. So that's how it started.
Yeah. How did you feel when it started to get a bunch of like traction, like people liking it? Did you feel, yeah, like what was your first reaction to all of that?
Feels weird, like thousands of people kept on liking, retweeting, and so on. So, but it feels good because I can see that the experience I have and the conversations I've had with people, actually we're all more or less the same, you know, because I'm Indonesian, I'm from Indonesia, I live in Singapore, I have friends with different nationalities, but all in all, at the core, we're confused about life, we're lost, we want to do something, but we don't know what to do. So that's why I wanted to write about those kind of topics, because it touches so many people from different backgrounds. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can definitely relate to that. I think one of the things that was the most like immediately arresting when I looked at your comics was I was like, yeah, that's true. It's not just me. Yeah. So that's awesome. Ali, I know you just mentioned the music things, but are you getting any traction? How does it feel?
I mean, it's interesting to watch the scale of it. Like, there's definitely an interesting difference between releasing on SoundCloud and releasing on Spotify. I think, I mean, people, you might resonate with this, Brian, which is like, it depends where you put your stuff. Like when I put something on SoundCloud and I kind of told people about it, no one really cared. But as soon as it was on Spotify, which actually is just as easy as putting it on SoundCloud, but no one really knows, it seems way more like a bigger deal. And people were like congratulating me that it was actually just as easy. But yeah, it's definitely, people were very nice about it, and getting responses it's interesting, kind of separating between like people that are giving you praise and then separating that from like looking for critique in what you're doing is always quite a hard thing to actually find, I think.
Yeah. Speaking of critique, I know there is a question on the Figjam that's quite interesting. It mentions, well, there is one about feeling, well, in Singaporean terms, paiseh, right? Which is just embarrassed or shy. But there's one that's specifically about doxing. So I guess as content creators, have either of you experienced any kind of, I don't know, yeah, negative stuff? Like how common is it? Brian, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I think it will be there in the beginning. Like when, I think the biggest challenge when publishing things online, whether it's music, YouTube, or whatever, it's the fear of looking stupid in front of the whole world, right? And the fear of clicking the publish button for the first time. But the truth is when it's your first time publishing something, I learned it that you're not famous at all. My first article in 2016, I spent like 3 months writing about it and blah 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 research and all of that thing. But when I publish it, nobody reads it for 3 months. So that's when I learned that
No.
just publish it, no one will read it anyways. And
That's really comforting to me. Thanks.
yeah, I think once you get past that first publish button fear, I guess, you'll get more comfortable publishing. And once you're comfortable with it, it gets easier over time.
Awesome. Anything you want to add to that, Ali? It's fine if.
I mean, I would definitely say I 100% agree on the publishing thing. Like it's a weird thing that the amount of people that were like, again, it's weird to be congratulated on doing something that is as simple as just pushing a button. Like I'm not exactly putting a huge amount of effort in, but even when it comes down to it reminds me like when it comes down to like what you think people are going to care about. It's like one of the things that on ADPL what people ask me a lot about is like degree marks and stuff like that, and my response is always like, no one has ever asked me about what degree mark I ever got ever, in my degree. Like no one's ever asked me what mark I got in my degree, and like they always just ask for like portfolio stuff, and it's always just about like just not overthinking what people are going to actually ask for and not assuming what people are going to ask for, because usually most of the time it's pretty much in your head, which is 99% of the case with everything.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. On the subject of ADP list, actually, which I forgot, that is another connection point between you and Rata. Rata, do you have, so I know for you, you mentioned you switched careers from being an air stewardess to design. And I think that's super interesting, as well as the fact that you're involved with ADP list. How important was self-promotion in your job search?
Yes.
As a switcher?
I think it's very super important for the self-promotion, because I believe that everything should start from yourself. So for example, even when you go for networking, you should talking about what you are doing right now. You're doing this, you're doing those, like how you come to the solution it's the same thing when you present your portfolio. Start from research with method until you come with the solution. It's the same thing. You should start talking about yourself, because people will not know like what are you doing right now, right? And then when you share things that about yourself, you can get feedback from people as well, or you will know more like how people in this industry, how they do that, like you can get back and you can iterate your portfolio or your work again, and then you go for a job search again. And it's very important for your resume and LinkedIn as well, like all your skill that you have from the previous job, you can put it there into a new job that you want to apply for. Like try to leverage all the skill that you have and present about yourself, because I believe at the end of the day, it's about like, if you don't have confidence from yourself, right, start to promote yourself, how other people will have confidence for you. Like, oh, Rata, how Melody gonna think that Rata can join your team? Like even you don't have your confidence from yourself, how other people can have that kind of confidence to have you in a team. So that's why I think self-promote is very important, and everything should start from yourself. Yeah.
Thank you so much. You know what? That's beautiful. I love this idea of applying like the design process, right, to your self-promotion. Talking about what you're doing, not being worried about perfection at the end of it, just showing your current, like in a sense, work on yourself and getting feedback so you can iterate it. I think like it's really great to be able to do that. But for me, at least, just having the confidence to do that is like already a super big barrier. What are some, I don't know, can you share like what are some things that you explicitly like went to do in order to self-promote?
So for me, right, Melody?
Yeah, that's right.
Can I have a question again?
Oh, no worries. Were there specific things that you did to promote yourself when looking for a job as a job switcher?
Okay, so what I do, right, when I do a job search, right? So I mean, I will start talking with people that work in that industry. For example, I can tell about my journey. I want to become a UX designer from one video on YouTube. I just watched that video. And then I start to enroll my online course. And after that, I start networking with people. By why networking? At that time, I don't know that much. I want to know that is a Melody do the same thing that I expect in what is the UX designer or what is product designer. Start networking and asking them about questions that I have to leverage about what I expected and what I gonna fade up with when I become a UX designer. So that's the thing I recommend you folks to start doing that when you want to do a job. Even when you want to apply a job with my company or other company, you can like everything on the website you cannot believe at all 100%. Or when you ask the recruiter is kind of robotic, they will answer ABC, like the checklist. You should start asking people from LinkedIn and try to hop on a call with them. Can you list 3 things that you like on your company? What is the most 3 things that you don't like? Can you share to me more? You know, like at the end of the day, I think you are the one to find a place that you feel that is your second home, is your home to work with. And the important thing is the culture. That's the thing you cannot read on the website. They're gonna say diversity and
Sorry, I'm laughing at the comments, not at you,
collaboration.
Rata. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
open communicate, agile, you know. Actually, maybe it's not agile, but they say that they are agile. So you should like do research about the company. Like that's kind of thing that I can share.
Rata, you're full of wisdom. I love the thing about not believing everything on the page, because isn't that like the whole internet, really? I don't know, man. But yeah, on this subject, I wanted to turn it over to Ali again to ask, as someone who I know you're on ADP list, and I'm sure you see a lot of career switches as well. How important would you say, kind of related to what Rata's mentioned about promoting yourself by talking to people? How important is that to someone who's kind of, I guess, trying to come into the industry, or designers in general? Sorry.
I mean, it's interesting, right? So I think when I think about most of the calls I get and most of these sessions I have on ADPL are from career shifters. And but most of the conversations I have are actually feel more like I end up being more like a hype man than more like I'm picking up people's confidence. And I think a lot of it comes down to like what we're discussing, which is that usually people aren't very sure in the direction or the things they should be putting in. And a lot of my conversations I have are around, I think someone just mentioned it, Dickie said that comes down to like authenticity, right? And a lot of the conversations come down to this conversation around what should they be removing and like what should they really be focusing on that is like UX based. And a lot of the time when I'm looking for designers, like UX for me is like the UX practices are like baseline. Like I kind of expect that when people apply. It's like I am looking for, there's a baseline of UX practicing or whatever discipline it is. And it's the stuff kind of surrounding that, the peripheral stuff that really interests me. So it's like if you're into photography or if you're into ceramics or you're into something completely unrelated and you have a way of kind of bringing that into your design practice in some way, that's the stuff that really kind of stands out to me, makes me quite excited. And like I feel like a lot of the sessions I have on ADPL, and it always comes from the stance of like setting up and going, this is just my point of view from like someone who hires for a very weird form of agency that is not totally normal, but like I like the weird stuff, and I think it's good to make you stand out more when it comes into personal brand, because when you're competing on the UX stuff, when you're just competing on like base UX practices, everyone's going to have that. It's the interesting bits around like cultural aspects or the things that you're genuinely interested in, that when I'm looking at hiring people, I'm always like, okay, how could we bring those skills in to the UX practice? Like if they're interested in photography, how do we bring that in as well as UX? That's the stuff that I end up talking a lot to people on ADPL about, because usually they're trying to remove it. I'm like, no, please don't remove it. Please keep it in and like make it important to your process. Because most of the time it is, and they've been involved in it, but they've been told sometimes to put it behind and just focus on UX, which I think is a shame, because usually it's not the job they'll be doing exclusively anyway. But yeah, I think that's most of the time on ADPL. But it applies to how I hire junior designers anyway, or just designers in general. I usually look at, I have the expected skills, and then everything around there is the stuff that I get super excited about.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting that you brought that up as well, because there are a lot of, like, I guess after you do it for a while, you do realize that there are a lot of like other connecting points. I think that's where you start to realize, oh yeah, it's not just this sterile discipline that, you just like this process and you go dot, 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 dot. And after this, you always do that. There's so many other ways to kind of bring it to life almost. On that note, I also wanted to ask Brian if, that holds. I don't know if you have spoken to people also who are career switchers or people in general who maybe also ask you similar questions. As someone who is relatively senior, how do you feel about how important it is to be known in a community?
I think it's good, but to be honest, it's a good to have, because I used to think it's important. It does help you in a way, right? If you're well known, you'll get more invitations for interviews. People would want to talk to you more. But it's nice to have, because when I joined Grab, I've met lots of amazing designers that I've never known before. They're good, they're nice, they're smart, but I've never seen their name anywhere, seen their names anywhere. So that's what changed my mind about self branding. Being well known, but still it's nice to have, because it does help you get hired easier, because you'll get noticed easier.
Yeah, I think that definitely makes sense. It isn't always a one-to-one map. Like, someone who's the most well-known will definitely be the best designer. But like you said, I think I like that point. It definitely helps you get through the door. And also this is what Ali said, right? Especially for junior designers. It can be difficult. From personal experience looking through portfolios too, it can be really difficult. Like, oh, how do you know this guy and that guy? So yeah, thanks for sharing that. And on that note about hiring designers, I wanted to move on to one of the other themes, which is around self-promotion in the hiring process. So the question that got just the most reactions overall is, what makes a candidate stand out in the hiring process, both good and bad? So I think we've talked about one of these things, which, Ali, you've mentioned kind of having kind of adjacent interests or hobbies that kind of relate to design. But are there other things that maybe stand out? And maybe I'll put this to Brian first, just to continue. And obviously, the rest of you, feel free to chip in. You don't have to wait for me to pass the mic if you feel like it. Okay, Brian.
I think I'm going to build on top of what Ali has shared. I think it would be so much easier to be remembered if you are more than just a designer, because there are lots of designers, lots of UX designer, UI/UX, in the intersection of tech and design and so on, right? But it's rare to see people who is a designer and something else. And I think when I'm speaking from my experience from my previous companies, when I see people who's more than just a designer, it's much more interesting. We have more interesting chats, it's more engaging and so on. So it really gets me to know the person I talk to, and on a personal level. So I get to see what the person is actually like in real life, right? And yeah, the other thing is, I would say, how do I say it in a nice way? You can use Notion, but you should know that Notion is, a lot of people use Notion. So I feel like it's very hard to show your personality through Notion. And I think if you want to put the effort to, build your website using Wix, Webflow, whatever, it gets better because you can show your personality through your design. And it just makes sense, because you're a designer. You should design your own website at least, so you can show what you're all about, right? But recently, people have been using Notion, so it gets hard for me to remember which candidates are interesting, which are better than the others, because it's all the same. It's all templates. So yeah, I like Notion, but it's better if you can show off a little bit.
That's really interesting. Ali, any thoughts from
I mean,
Someone else who hires a lot.
I definitely have an opinion around the Notion thing.
Yeah.
I think I agree with Brian. I mean, it really depends on how it's used to me. When it comes down to things like that, it's like anything. It's like when you build your own website, you have to build it well, or else it really stands out that you've like just being able to build a website. But if you build it badly, it kind of stands against you, you know. And in the same way that if you use Notion and you use it really well, it's going to stand out as like a positive. If you use it in a way that's quite basic, it'll look weak. Like you're saying, you become a bit forgettable in things. I think the bits that always stand out that are quite memorable to me are people that like have very much thought through the questions they want to ask me in the session, and like are quite, I wouldn't say confrontational, but like have very like intentional questions that are around agency. Like for instance, if you look us up, we have 2 reviews on Glassdoor, and they're pretty brutal, I'll be honest. And like whenever people ask about them, we have a very, I usually enjoy having a conversation about it, because they're very good context to those 2 not very nice, not great reviews. And like usually it gives an opportunity for us to talk about even bringing in and inviting those people to speak to our like alumni of left as a way to like connect in. And it's just, I think when people put the effort in to kind of actually think about why they want to work at agency, it seems like such a basic thing, but I'd say about 90% of the time people really haven't thought about that. And because we're such a specialized agency, that is very abnormal, that we wouldn't normally, you couldn't really apply to us as like a general UX designer. And when people do, it doesn't go very well, and the conversation is very flat. So yeah, I think I meet people a lot through ADPL who kind of approached me and they've spoken to like hundreds of companies and nobody's reached back. And I'm usually like, it's always better to go down the route of like, what are like your top companies, and just really focus on those first and really cater your portfolio towards them. And then if that doesn't work, you can still use the same portfolio. I've had people that have applied to us with very specialized portfolios that do not fit agency, but it was so interesting, and so the direction they were going was so valuable that I wanted to hire them just based on like how specialized their skills were and how interesting they were, and thinking about how I can make them fit into what we do. Oh, I see a dog.
Yes.
Sorry, I was
No
very excited to
worries.
see on the screen. But like, I really do think that that's important to me when it comes to it, which is like fundamentally, like you should know why don't do the, I really don't think do the 100 application thing, because you'll end up just disappointed in the places that you probably do want to work in.
Yeah, I really like your point about, okay, I'm so sorry. My dog is like, oh, you can't see him. Okay, good. Oh no. Go away.
Adorable.
This is a recorded video. Go away. Sorry. I lost my train of thought. I really like your point about, I think between you and Brian talking about how, especially the nuance about how it can be a double-edged sword if you use Notion really well versus if you just maybe, use the very basic function. I am so sorry. My boyfriend is not home, and so it's just me and him. But yeah, I think there's a point in there about self-awareness and kind of knowing, based on where you currently are, what the best way is to showcase that. And I think the other point that I kind of got from what you said, Ali, was about then also knowing where you're applying to and kind of trying to find that match, which I think is great. I mean, from a meta point of view, there are also a bunch of really great designers who apply. And even if I wanted to have them join, it might not always be a good fit. And when I say that, it also means that they might not be doing the kind of work that they enjoy, just looking at their portfolio. But I think that insight for me is also a win for both of us, just because do they really want to, I don't know, is that really something you want to do? So I'm rambling because I'm trying to hold my dog back, but
I'd actually say to that point, Melody,
yeah.
I actually think being clear on where you want to work and why you want to work somewhere is a really important part to applying to jobs. Like, there's places I don't want to work.
Yeah.
It took me a few years to work that bit out. And like now it's much easier for me to think about like even advising people, which is like having a clearer picture on like when you think about personal branding, like what do you actually prioritize for yourself in terms of what kind of designer do you want to be and what kind of places do you want to work? It's probably the place you should start before you start on a job search. And it's easy to say that from someone who has a job. I know there's lots of people that are like quite desperate to get jobs at these points, but like like prioritizing where you want to be as a designer should be like the starting point, and kind of aligning your values and how they align with the companies you're applying for. Like it should be like the baseline, I think.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I think one of the things that can be really difficult, as you've mentioned, right, is knowing what is the right place for you. And to that, and to Rata's earlier point on a slightly different topic, it's really important, I think, to talk to people, and to some extent also to experience things. You know, it's not always, you know, it's 2022. Your current company is very unlikely to be your final company, unless you're going to retire soon, in which case, great, I'm jealous. But yeah, Rata, I wonder if you have any points of, like, if you have any reactions to what we've talked about so far from your perspective as someone who's gone through the job search.
Yeah, for me, I want to talk about the portfolio platform, right? For me, I mean that anyone can use any platform like Notions, Webflow, Bubble.io, UX Portfolio, whatever you very comfortable to use, because everything is just your portfolio online. But when it's come to your interview, I never do that. I never show my portfolio online to the interviewer. So I like to do presentation, like normal presentation, the PowerPoint to the slide, because it's very easy to help me to control my presentation. You know, like I'm not like to scroll down, up and down to let the interviewer like look up and down to see my portfolio. So all the time I use my presentation as a PDF file and present, like when I present like the selling, you know, hello, I want to sell the pen to you, you want to buy, like la la la. And then I practice, and then I know what I'm gonna talk, present like slide number 1, 2, 3, and easy for the interviewer as well, right? Because the eye contact, they can easily see and absorb your content. Yeah, because if they have more questions, they will ask you, okay, Lata, can you show your design more? Then at that time, you can show more your design on your Figma, you know, walk them through all your design as well. Or you have the interview for a researcher role, they will ask you more method. That's the time you can talking more about your work. So I think that any platform, any tool that you're comfortable to use, it's just online to show to the recruiter to reach out you online, or the interviewer to see. But that's the thing, it's not for the presentation when you have the job interview. And another thing that I like to do is I like to ask them question back, the same question that they asked me. For example, if Brian asks me I think difficult and interesting question, I will answer my question. I like to do my interview like a Miss Universe style. Like when Brian give me the questions, I will say, thank you, Brian, for the questions. And then I repeat the question, and then I answer them. And then I ask Brian, if it's be you, what you gonna do? Can you tell me more, as you have more experience more than me? I want to know that. You know, it's not only that they interview me, I always interview them. Even I don't get a job, but I will learn more, understand more how they solve a problem. The same thing, I like to do that. But I would say it's my style. If you feel it's not like you should not do that, because I believe that everyone have their own style. Yeah. And please do research about the people who gonna come to interview you. Normally, in the company, they will send an email to you the day before, 2 or 3 days, or the week before. They will have then the name of the interviewer. For example, Rata, Melody, Brian, or Ali. Like, try to do research about your interviewer on your LinkedIn. You know, like try to know more about them. Greet them by name. Everyone like it, believe me. Like when you saw Brian, okay, even Brian cannot recognize you. And then you saw Brian, yeah, I know you from Friend of Figma Singapore last time. And then Brian gonna think like, oh, am I popular? Oh my God, people know about me. You know, people like, it's like psychologists that you should greeting people by name. Okay, should remember them. But be mindful one thing, everyone have personal space. Like you should not stalking on their Instagram, on their Facebook, they have private life. But the one that they share on public, on LinkedIn, that's the thing you can do research about them, you know. Oh, I really like your work on this, that, those, you know, show your interest more. It's like you do research about your interviewer. And lastly, do research about the company and your position. Don't just ask Ali, what is the job description again? So don't try to ask that. Like what you interview, so you should know everything. But you can say that, okay, I know that you have this and that. Can you explain to me more what that is mean, or am I understand correctly? So, and the lastly, please don't expect that the interviewer will ask you a lot of questions, but you are the one should prepare a lot of questions to ask them back, because sometimes they have a lot of interview on that day and they very tired already. They don't want to ask you. You are the one want a job from them. How you make them feel different? So it's your job, right? To like ask them a lot of questions, because I saw most of my friends, most of the time they don't get a job just because they expect that the interviewer will ask them more questions. And they, like, when the interviewer asks, do you have more questions? They say no. Or they think that why the interviewer only asks 1 or 2 questions, but you can turn yourself to be your interviewer. So that's the thing I like to do on my interview process. Yeah, I think.
Rata, I think you're ready to do a course on interview skills.
I tell
That
you,
was
would hire.
Yeah, I'm just like, this level of prep. It also made me feel slightly self-conscious about my LinkedIn again. But no, it totally makes sense. I think applying the sort of intentionality you would in your design work to the process of getting hired is something that I think most interviewers would appreciate. But obviously, like Rata said, not to the level where you're like, oh, is that your Instagram? That would be like, whoa, not in a good way, whoa. Thank you so much for sharing, Rata. Actually, one thing that came up in the chat that I wanted to pick up on, Michelle asked, I guess it's slightly related to this, in terms of hiring. Does having a famous company name, is having a famous company name on your CV more beneficial than being personally famous? I think that's an interesting question, and I'm going to punt that over to Brian, who has a lot of names on his CV that I recognize. All of you do, actually, but just from Brian's point of view.
Yes.
Yes, like that's your answer.
I think so. I mean, if you have like Google, Facebook, whatever in your CV, it's going to be wow. And people are going to be interested to talk to you. But I mean, it's my own personal curiosity. So yeah, short answer is yes. The long answer is yes. Of course.
that was straightforward. But no, I think that definitely makes sense. I feel like at the end of the day, just in terms of standing out, there's a bunch of things that give signal depending on who is interviewing you, and having a recognizable name definitely like kind of gets ears like, perked up. I'd be curious to know how you feel about this, because as you've mentioned a couple of times, agency isn't, you're not necessarily looking out for just the, I don't want to say run of the mill, but maybe you're looking for something a little different. On a side note, I also want to say that it's really difficult to Google agency. Every time I try to Google agency, I just get agencies, and I have to Google agency, and that doesn't really help.
Can't tell me about it. I'm kind of glad people can't find our website. It's so bad, to be honest. So it's kind of good. It's about to be updated. Just a plug for our website. It's going to update like next week. But
you'll have to send me the link.
I'll send you a link. It's terrible. I would say I do find it interesting. I mean, I worked at IDEO, right, for a few years, and that name follows me around pretty much everywhere, which is a benefit and a curse. So it's definitely a benefit in terms of if I ever wanted to get another job in that sphere, it's quite easy to get into interviews and get through a process. But also, if I ever wanted to swap over to products, it comes with a let's say a sentiment that usually works against me, I would say. So it's always a double-edged sword when you have like famous names on your resumes, because it just depends on who's interviewing you, I guess. And like you're kind of relying on the person interviewing you not to have bias, I guess. But everyone does, and it's kind of part of how it works. But I would definitely say, like, even for us, it's I would definitely touch on, it really comes down to, I'm always very excited about things that people have kind of kicked off on their own. So especially when it comes down to like whether it's like the thing that Brian's kicked off on his own, or like whether it's even something I'm going to point out, like, for me, it's like the thing that always gets me really excited is when I see people doing print stuff, because I see so much digital these days. When I see someone who's actually done something print related, I get quite excited. Like anything like that I see that stands out that people keep in their portfolios is stuff that I'm instantly going to hone in on, because I can kind of spend my own time kind of analyzing their digital stuff. I kind of want to be walked through the stuff that I don't really understand as much, because that excites me way more to kind of hear about. But I would definitely say when it comes down to like agency, we hire pretty much anyone that we think would add to like the kind of process that we go through, not so much like discipline, and it's not really discipline exclusive. So we have like engineers that work for us. We have people that have like built like scale businesses that are focused around like restaurants. So for us, it really comes down to like, can you change the way that can you take whatever you've used before and figure out how to use it in a human-centered way and then run with us and do what we're working on and apply it to something else. So if you can showcase in what you've done, how you can take what you've worked on before and figure out how to apply those learnings in something completely different, that's usually what we're looking for. So it's not usually the process so much, more like how you think. So in the interviews, we'll usually be asking questions around those things to kind of probe that out of you. And I think as well, to Rada's point, we're usually looking for them to ask it back, and asking things back that kind of make us think. If we walk away thinking with more questions than we went in with, that's usually a good sign in the interview. If we walk away already making a decision, that's usually a bad sign, I would say.
No, that's awesome. I really like this really nuanced view, because I definitely relate to it. My CV now has meta in it, and meta is controversial. There are plenty of people who told me they just won't work there just because of it, and I think that's a totally fair point. I mean, it is what it is, but it does become part of where you've worked. Does become part of your story. At the end of the day, I think there's a little bit of room, in terms of how you tell it, maybe. But yes, good points all around. I don't have an easy bridging point, so I'm just going to randomly jump to the next question, which is just, this is one of the post-its from the board, actually. It mentions the terms T-shaped or pie-shaped designers. And I am wondering if any of you folks are familiar with those terms, and if it plays into the way you look at, I guess, potential hires or potential sort of people that you're interviewing at all. I'll be honest, I've heard of T-shaped. I did not know what pie shape was, and I had to go and Google it. But yeah, have you all heard of it? Maybe we'll start with Ali, and then we'll move down, because I think you probably, like, you hire for your agency, the agency.
I think I mean, like, the thing I liked about this on the board when I was reading through it was the idea of like people asking what they should grow in. And I think it still relates to the point that I feel like I'm hammering at home now, which I feel bad about, but it's like there's always going to be, like, whether it's like growing in business, like when people ask people what they should grow in, it's really about what you care about. Like, you can definitely, at the moment, like, a lot of people are focusing on like business design as the next thing they should be growing their T into. And for me, it's like, what do you care about business design? And if you don't care about business design, then don't grow your T in that way, because you're going to end up hating it, I think. Versus there's still going to be room for designers in every space, at least in my belief. So T-shaped designers, I think there's always going to be room for what is pretty much just jack of all trade designers. But I think I don't know how much room there is left for non-T-shaped designers. I think it's definitely harder to be a super specialized designer these days. But being T-shaped, but for the right reason, I think is an interesting conversation to have. I'm curious what everyone else thinks about it. I mean, I have lots of opinions about it, but I do think having the right reason for why you want to grow a different arm in your discipline is more important than just growing that different arm. I'm not even sure which arms I have anymore in my T.
I know, right?
I'm like a rake now. It's very shallow rake, I think.
The convo in the chat is talking about something called comb shape. Maybe that's what
yeah. I'm a very shallow comb.
Comb shape or millipede shaped.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rata, have you seen this phrase while you're kind of thinking about your portfolio, like T-shaped, pie, I don't know, comb shaped?
Yeah, I think I am the one that I'm a T-shaped person. Like, I have, because I don't have any design background before. I transitioned my career from flight attendant to a UX designer. So it's kind of the horizon is the broad knowledge that I have, right? How I understand people, empathy with the user, like that most of the soft skill that I have. And then now I need to transfer everything to deep knowledge, like into the design vertical. So it's like for me, I think the T shape for me is nice. Like I know everything body from the first time, right? I don't know that much the hard skill. For example, I don't know that much about Figma, okay? But I know really relative thing about the design. So when the time I got a job and I do a real experience, right? I leverage everything from my previous job and put into the design that I learned from now to the hard skill. Then I can get to know more than other people that in the industry for long. Why I say that? Because like when you focus on one thing for a long time, the general thing that maybe you forgot about it. Yeah, I haven't. I'm not sure that is correct or not, but yeah, I don't want people to focus on the T shape or the cone shape. You just
Yeah.
be yourself, and you just lifelong learning is a good thing that you do. Like from right now, we use Figma. In the next 5 years, maybe have another tool. No more Figma, no more Adobe. So don't believe or don't like rely your life on the T shape or cone shape, but just lifelong learning on what you want to achieve or what is your goal. So that's the thing you want to focus, I think.
That's awesome. Dropping wise words as always. I have no words left. It's great. I really think this attitude of curiosity in general though, like really does help. I think it also seems to connect with what Ali was saying about kind of just just figuring out what it is about you that's unique and leveraging on it rather than trying to fit into a certain box, like fit into the UX of the UX. That didn't make any sense, but okay. I'm trying to keep up with the timeline here, so I'm going to move on a little bit. The next question is, we're going to start on the next theme, which is around self-promotion for advancement, sort of within your team or within an organization. So this one, I think I want to punt back over to Brian again, because this is a question that's, I think maybe the most directly related to like a bigger org like Grab. How important is visibility for advancing within an organization or team? And what does it mean to be visible?
It's a very hard question. But
I know, right? I also have been asked
Yeah.
this by my manager recently, and I'm just like, So yes, please tell me the answer, Brian.
I think I'm speaking from my experience working in a smaller organization with 5 designers, and now at Grab with more than 50, I think. It's very different in terms of how visible you can be with the same amount of self-promotion. So in my previous company, it's very small. So even if I don't do anything, people know me. They will come to me about design. They will know that they can count on me, and whatever, they will always invite me to meetings and so on. But in a larger company with more designers, sometimes people that don't even know me, and I joined during COVID. So imagine trying to get to know everyone by chatting on Slack. It's very hard. So I've only gotten used, I got to know almost everyone after around 6 months of working, and I'm still learning there. So what was the question again? Sorry.
It's all good. Okay, maybe we can break it into half.
Yeah.
Maybe that's on me. The first question is, what does visibility mean to you in terms of like, self-promotion within a company or a team? What do you do to become visible?
What do I do to become visible?
Or do you actively try to?
I don't,
Okay,
but
that's fair.
maybe I'll try to answer. But I think the more, because when I joined Grab, nobody
Yep.
knew me, and it's COVID,
Yeah.
it's on
Yeah.
Zoom. So it's easier if I ask questions rather than just, randomly talk about something. If I ask questions, I get to learn.
Yep.
They get to know me, and we sort of build connection from there. So I guess that's what I'm doing right now most of the time. And after a while, the stakeholders start to talk to me, start to reach out to me. So I think that's what's working for me so far.
Yeah, that's fair. I think visibility can be a hard thing to kind of get a handle on, especially if it's not something that you seek out, right? Which sounds like is the case, and which is totally fine. I think to your earlier point about like there can be really great designers that you don't even know. I think that's totally fine. But maybe then I think some of the questions relating to visibility, we're talking about agencies as well. And so I'm also super curious. I don't have that much exposure to like agency world. So Ali, what do you have any thoughts on what it means to be visible?
Yeah.
Particularly in an agency context.
I guess, okay, again, speaking to this from like our agency point of view about this, I would say I can talk about it from an IDEO point of view too. Like it's something we brought over with us from IDEO, to agency. It's super important I have two things I try and install in my juniors, which is one is I also try to do this for my students at NUS as well, which is thinking in like half-baked thoughts and like not staying shy about what you're thinking and like being willing just to put out, even if you don't think it's right, just being willing to speak up in conversations and then put it out there, because a lot of the time we spend kind of just riffing off each other and just trying to work out what we're actually trying to understand. And a lot of the time it's much easier to kind of stay quiet in those conversations and leave it to more senior people to kind of just like have it out, and I'm always trying to just get my junior designers to go just get involved in the conversation, even if you don't think what you're saying is going to contribute, because it is going to contribute. And then the second one that I always try and think when it comes to standing out is like, don't really ask for permission, in the sense of like, just if they come to me with like something they want to do. For instance, I have a great intern at the moment, one of my students who is a great at 3D printing. And I was just like, if you want to 3D print something that you think is going to support the project, just come to me and tell me what it is, and we'll do it. We'll figure out how to make it work in the project. And so we just printed loads of stuff on a project that has nothing to do with 3D printing, and it contributed a lot to the project. And it's just understanding how those skills are going to be useful for us, regardless, is useful for all the work going forward. Even if it doesn't make total sense for the project we're doing, we get to like utilize those skills. And it's so much easier just to sit on that skill because you don't think it's going to be useful in the context you're doing, but then just like making it make sense is a really useful thing to do. In agency world, it's much easier to do that than it is, I can imagine, in somewhere like Grab or Meta, where I imagine if you suggested using 3D printing, maybe it wouldn't make as much sense, but like
I'd have to go through a process to get approval to get the thing printed. Yeah.
But for us, I will just, if you want a 3D print, I will go out and I'll buy a 3D printer. I'll put it on the desk and you just show me how to use it, and we'll get it running, There's a benefit of small companies, I guess. But yeah. I think just putting yourself forward and just like showing off your skills and not just falling into the role that you think you're meant to be doing, it's important.
I really like this idea of like, at least one of the themes you brought up about how being in an agency could be different from like a bigger org. Maybe this is less about agency versus like a product team and more about just almost size of team. I feel like, there's more room to maybe explore different things and to put yourself out there in a very specific thing. Whereas maybe in a more structured org, it's a little more difficult to do that. It becomes a bit, I see the word in the chat, performative. So I don't know if you experienced this, Brian, but in my experience, there's definitely times where what being visible means feels a little bit performative, in the sense that it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it does mean that you have to show your work a certain way to a certain audience, and that you kind of have to spend a lot of time doing it. It's a very different lens or frame of mind.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm afraid of, like deep inside. I don't want people to think of me like I'm trying to get attention. I
saw your question in the chat, by the way. Wayang is exactly the term for what you're afraid of in Singlish. Like people will say in Singlish slang, people will say, he wayang one lah, or she wayang one lah. And that is sounds like what you relate to that you don't want to be. But yeah, sorry, I interrupted you. Did you have more to add on? Because I just randomly cut in.
No, cut
Okay,
at
you
the
just
right
don't want to be that.
I don't want to be wayang one lah.
Can I ask Rada what is like from like a junior side of being in this?
Yeah.
Like, do you feel that? Like, because I know Footworks is quite supportive of like being like exploring these sort of things.
Yeah, for me to be visible, right, in the company. Is that the question? So for me, what I did is I start to have one-on-one call with people in the company before I join. Or even the early week that I join, I try to know everyone in the company before. Because I have one experience that something happened and no one know me. And for example, if you have two people, right? And for example, we have Ali and Brian. Okay, everyone know Brian. So what Brian say, people gonna believe on Brian because like he has reputations. Everyone know about him. But in this case, Ali is not the wrong person. But people gonna believe that Ali did some mistake. Just because no one know you. So I learned about that. But I mean, just start to chit chat about them, get to know more about them, not related to work. Hi Melody, I know you have a dog. Can you talk me about your dog? I have a cat. Chit chat. Don't talk anything about your work because at the end of the day, they are your friends, they are your colleagues. Try to talk outside of your work. Like to show you sincerely to them that you want to know them, get to know more about themselves. So that's the thing that people gonna know you. Like also one thing I like to do is I like to host an event on my company. So when I show up my face, people gonna know, hey Lata, hey Lata, hey Lata, all the time. So that's the thing. It can help you to be visible. But by doing that, not only doing that, when it's come to work, when you do your work and then you should, how can I say, what you're gonna say, like you have some question, right? You can ask your folks to let you know that, oh, Rata is doing this kind of thing and she need help, or like you need more feedback from them. So that's the thing you can show to people that, oh, you're doing this thing, because like when you in ThoughtWorks, it's the agency. You have project, you don't have project. So when you don't have project, it means like you don't have anything to do. And how people gonna know you because you don't have any chance to work with other people, right? So the key thing is, even you don't have a project, but you are on beach, try to work with some people, even the internal project or global project, try to involve yourself there. At least you have something that you can work, and that's the thing, you can be visible and people know your reputation. Or Melody like to do this, that's those. When it comes to that kind of thing, they will ping Melody. Like when it comes to host the online event, people will reach out to me, Rata, are you interested to do this? I think, what? How do you know? They will know by themselves, like that. Or when it's come to research, they will ping Brian all the time. So that's the thing, people will know you. Because I learned one thing, like most of people, they don't like to get to know more about people, right? And no one will know about them as well. And when it's time for promotion, I will say that, I mean, like we have the system to track all the progress. I mean, like if you don't care about other people, how people will care about you? It's the same thing, It's the same thing. Like
Rata, you're hitting me with realness right now. If I don't care about people, will people care about me? No, I'm kidding.
I just meaning that I when they have the community or thing about your company, you should help your community or the company to doing something that you very interesting too, right? That's the thing, is help you to like visible in the company, in the community. Yeah. Ali, am I answer your question? Yeah.
Beautiful. I really like this idea that this, okay, to some level, and maybe, I don't know, Brian, if this makes you feel better, it makes me feel better. Like this visibility is about, like, in some ways showing people what you're doing. Just the most, I guess, authentic way of it is really just saying, hey, I'm working on this. And maybe it's not the best. And, in design terms, especially, like maybe it's not done, right? Maybe this is crit. Just to give people an idea of who you are, what work you represent. And maybe that's a reasonable sort of starting point or middle ground. At this point, I want to quickly check in with Zoe because I think we are at time. we have one sort of general question left, but I don't know what the appetite is to kind of continue.
Yeah, let's just do one last question.
Alrighty. Okay, so feel free, everyone. I know it's supposed to be until 9, so if you're not able to hang on too long, that's good. But our last question is more specifically around asking for a promotion or pay raise. So this is spicy. Has anyone, and I'll put this to any one of you can answer. Have you ever asked, spoken to a manager or someone to ask for a promotion or a pay raise? And how do you recognize the right time to do so?
I think I can answer, but I never do that. But I can share, like, if it's happened with me, what I'm gonna do. To get promotion is very easy. Why I say that? Because like when you should start talking with your manager before, right? What is your plan? Like for example, oh, I want to become a senior within 6 months or next year. What do you think about me? Or do I need to do something more? Like list everything that your manager said and try to do accordingly at the end of the day, that you can do that kind of the checklist. So that's the thing, that you have the evidence that you talk with your manager, writing down everything. Like it's not like you think by yourself that you this and you're gonna get promoted, but your manager think different way. So it's like it's easy to just start talking with them and talking about your plan. If they say no, like I think you are not become a senior yet soon, then ask them how I can become a senior, right? Because they have much more experience, or what should I do more? They will give you, maybe it cannot be promoted within 1 year, but upcoming year you will get soon, because you can do that kind of thing. So for me, just start talking with them and tracking your progress since the day one. Yeah, so that's the thing I will do. Don't try to get the luck by yourself, like, oh, Ali I work so hard, I work 7 day and 24 hours, and Ali gonna promote me for sure, and my Figma is so good, my pixel is so good. Don't think by yourself. Did you ask Ali before? Did you have conversation with him before? Or does he had any concern? Promoting the people is not about he like you and he want to promote you. It's about your hard skill, your performance, the budget of the company, the headcount, every single thing. So start talking with your manager. Don't think by yourself. So that's the thing I can share.
I
thought you
personally-
need like an advice column. Sorry, go on, Ellie.
I mean, I definitely resonate with that from both sides, which is the worst thing to happen from a managerial point of view is to suddenly be hit with people expecting things, but it never being expressed before. Even if you think you're aligned about something and then finding out you're not aligned, that can be disappointing. I'd say even on the original question, like the first time I asked for, when I was in London, living what I thought, like basically not being really able to afford to live in London, and then kind of spending like 2 weeks building up the courage to ask for a raise, and then finally doing it, and then basically getting a raise approved in like 15 minutes. And it just because of like the rationale of like I was being underpaid, and I think it kind of comes back to the same thing the writer's saying, which is like communication is pretty much key. There's like different aspects of it, which is like if you're in an organization that has a very structured process, that's great. A lot of organizations don't. I can say agency, we're not the best when it comes to organization. When it comes to these things, we have a process, and but that doesn't mean that's the only time that you can talk about these things. People will come to us at different times. Sometimes circumstances change. Sometimes we have quite a flat hierarchy when it comes to work, and you might suddenly be leading projects because you're way more capable, and you might be wanting to lead projects. That should come with different shifts in compensation. But sometimes those things happen mid-project. So there's circumstances like that where I would always encourage people to defend your own corner and be proactive about it. Because it always works out, I would say. And if it doesn't work out, then that's always a good sign that you should start thinking about what you're going to do next if you're not getting what you want. Usually a good sign. That would be my advice.
Yeah, I think to your point, right? can't really hurt to go to your manager with that conversation. It's not an easy one by any means. I totally feel that, but it can't really hurt to go to your manager with that conversation, at least to establish like where your expectations on both sides currently are. I really liked, Rata, like the way that you talked about this, you know, in terms of, I think this is just about as is about being authentic with, and there we go. Yeah, I'm sorry, but we are it's about being authentic with even the person who's managing you, having the kind of relationship where you can talk about what you want. He's upset. I'm sorry. But yeah, Brian, do you have any thoughts on this? On like kind of asking someone for a promotion or a pay raise? Have you done it before?
Yeah, I've done both what Rata said and Ali did. So I did ask for a promotion, not promotion, for a raise out of the blue. And my manager gave me like a list of things I need to do. So, which I should have asked before I asked for a promotion. So yeah, I did exactly the opposite of what Rata told us just now. So yeah, I think it it just makes sense to plan it ahead. And I guess in some circumstances, you can just ask and try your luck. But yeah, if you're not lucky, then you can just live. You can only live with it.
Oh, that's a deep sentiment. You can only live with it, but I love it. It's the kick in the behind I need as well, because I also need to do this. I am so sorry, my friends. But yeah, I think at this point we are pretty much at the end. I want to maybe leave the floor open if anyone has any questions or additional things they want to ask. So is this a thing I can do? Ask people for questions. He is asking to go out again, even though we have just been out. He wants to go out now when it's dark.
He's adorable.
He's
So cute.
He's half husky, so he likes going out at night, I think, because it's cooler. But it's like been raining, so if he goes out now, he's gonna roll in the mud, and I'm not giving him a bath like at 10 o'clock. So yeah, he does. He's chief of barking. He does want to stand up. My apologies. He's just screaming. Any
Okay.
questions?
Any last question, everyone? Otherwise, I think we can wrap it up. And
Yes.
Yes. A question.
Yes.
yeah,
Let's go on.
Reta, like because I'm actually a university student, and like all this advice came just in time because I'm actually starting my internship, in a UI UX role next week. And I think what Reta mentioned about having authentic conversations and building the rapport with the colleagues and your mentors is really important, and it's very useful advice. But I was just wondering, like, you know, sometimes I get this sense that everyone's really busy, and I'm not too sure if they're comfortable with me just like hitting them up for like one-on-one chat. So how do you like kind of like how do you like insert this like one-to-one chat financially, and how do you ensure that you don't let's say like invade into people's like personal space and stuff like that? Yeah.
it's a really great question. Anyone wanna, Ali, I see you unmuting yourself.
But you can take it, sorry, if you want. I'm happy to
No,
do it.
no. I'm just helping Melody because Jupes is screaming.
Yeah.
Thank you
worries.
so much. But yeah, please go.
I mean, I would definitely say just do it. Like, don't overthink it. Most people, I can't think of a time that anyone's ever tapped me on the shoulder, especially someone who's just joined a company, that I have never been willing to not. I'm always willing to have conversations with people, especially when they've just joined. I mean, regardless of anyone, like anyone who's distracting me from work it sounds great to me, to be honest. So I'm always willing to have a chat about pretty much anything. Like, don't get it in your head that people are too busy to chat. You'll stop yourself having really useful, meaningful conversations that all of us will want to have. Best thing to do is, like, if you're feeling nervous about it, it's just it's easy to say, put it out of mind. But I think I give a bit of advice to my students sometimes that I also use a lot. I use for this call today, which is that if you feel nervous, just convince yourself that you're excited instead, and then you'll do it. Basically, so I'd say just go for it is the best way to do it. That no one will be too busy to have a chat, and if they are too busy to have a chat, then they'll let you know and they'll set a time. That's what they should do as good seniors. So Yeah, that's at least what I think about it.
Oh, so like just be brave and just like hit them up, I guess.
100%. You should see it as like they are probably waiting for it, and the only reason they probably aren't doing it actively is because everyone's quite busy. But everyone's always going to be busy.
Right.
So like there's no right time to like just have a conversation. So but just same way as saying every time is the right time to have a conversation. So
Oh.
just tap on their shoulder and say hi. And if it's online, just send them a message.
Rita, you wanted to add on to the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, like, don't think too much. I like to say that because when you think too much, it will obstacle. It will block you not to doing something. So just do it because you not lose anything. To find a job, it's kind of you find someone for dating. It's kind of dating. Looking for a job is dating. Like you want, for example, you want to talk with Brian. Brian don't reply you at all on LinkedIn. Then you try to talk with another guy like Ali, Ali don't talk with you, then try to talk another person, it's kind of dating. Don't think about that. If they don't want to talk with you, it's okay, leave them behind, start talking with new people. You have more 1,000 people that work for Meta, work for Grab, not only Brian that work for Grab, right? They have more 1,000 people that work for Grab. If Brian don't want to talk with you, then it's okay. Maybe the head of designer or whatever in Grab want to talk with you. You don't know that. Just try to start talking with them, and also change on the opposite side. Not talking about yourself like, oh, I'm graduate, la 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 la. No, talking about themselves first. For example, oh, hi Mary, I know you work with Meta, it's so amazing. I would love to learn more about your experience. Can you share more with me? Talking about themselves, they like to hear that. Believe me, not talking about yourself first because no one wants to know about you. It's like that. They will be like, oh my God, I'm special. People will start talking about me. So that's the thing. They will start talking with you. They will accept you to connect on LinkedIn. And what else I can share? Yeah, I think that's all. Just start doing that. And if they don't talk with you, it's okay, move to another person. Because I start doing that when I do a boot camp, and my mentor say that. For example, like, oh my God, they from Meta, they don't accept my LinkedIn profile. I keep doing that, and I start to building my connection from that the thing. I move on. They don't talk me, it's okay. And also you need to show your interest, how much you need to talk with them. It's like how much you want to get that guy. It's the same thing, but this one is for a job. Show your interesting, and then at the end they will come and talk with you, right? Show intention. Yeah.
I love the like dating metaphor. Like, yeah, it's so true. Wow, okay. It's just like how people look for mentors also, right? Like you just have to put yourself out there. I'm sorry, I just have another question actually, since some of you are actually on ADP list, right? So I was actually also booking some of the mentorship sessions. And because 30 minutes is so short, right? Like on one hand, I want to build some rapport and actually have casual conversations. But then on the other hand, I also do have like questions and things that I want to clarify. So I'm just curious, like for like mentors like you guys, what kind of like mentorship sessions do you guys really enjoy? Like, do you want a better mix of like casual chats and also professional questions? Or is it more of like something more casual? Or like what's a good what's an enjoyable mentorship session like? Yeah.
Has anyone ever asked you that? I feel so touched by this question. No one has ever asked me what do I enjoy in mentorship.
That's true. It's no one ever asked the mentor. I like both. I like it when people come super prepared with what they want to know, and I also like it when it's just they come in just to have a random chat. I would say even the random chat ones usually come with follow-up questions, and I'll usually give them stuff to do, or like things I would like them to like share with me, even if we're just casually having a chat. But then it depends, really. It really depends what they want out of it. I'm usually, whenever people book me for mentoring sessions, I'm usually we start by just trying to figure out what they want to talk about. Because most of the time it's like, I usually have a question in mind, which is kind of very focused on finding that out, I'd say. Because if someone wants really focused interview questions, most of the time I don't think I'm usually the right person to talk to. So I usually pass them off to someone else. Is normally what I would say, depending on where they're trying to apply to.
I see. Okay. I guess it's also like blind date. To see if you match with your mentor. Right. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I think that's all the questions I have. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for your question. That was great. Anyone else? Zoe, are we out of time? Sorry, I should have asked you this before we started.
Yeah, I think we can probably wrap up and then we can meet on the server if we have any further questions. Everyone on this call is on the server, so
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian, Ali, Rata. You guys have been great. Rata, you are like my new, I don't know, man. Like I need your energy, you know. I need this energy. And thanks
feel like
everyone
it's-
else. Sorry?
I feel like it's very balanced. Like Brian brings a very like calm and very
Yeah.
to the point. And
Yeah.
then we have Ali, of course, you know. No.
That means
I'm just
Just
joking.
the rambler.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
I was just joking.
Chaos.
We're gonna meet for dinner soon. Please don't kill me.
But yes, thanks so much. Thanks, Zoe, and thanks everybody else who have made the time to come here. As Zoe has said, please continue to ask your questions on the server. You can access Brian and Ellie and every other great designer on here. So yes, FOF forever, so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you and good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.